Hello everyone, welcome to our online class reporting. I am Kyle Antoinette IVANY BINAYAO and I'm going to tackle today all about Art Nouveau. So what makes Art Nouveau different from the other form of art styles? So as you can see here, there are three art movements presented. The first one is the Greek, followed by the medieval, and lastly, the Baroque art movement. The three art movements have different styles. However, there are commonalities in doing these art movements, and the question is, what is it? Have you ever noticed this kind of style? The swirling plant-like gates with their distinctive lettering that serve as entryways to the city's subway system or metro? Well, that's the product of the art style prospered during the late 19th century and early 20th century. That's the creation of the art movement, what we call Art Nouveau. Art Nouveau, or the French term for new art, is a colorful movement in the arts that captivated Europe during the transition of the 19th century to the 20th century. In other languages, Art Nouveau had other names, such as Style Liberty in Italy and Jugendstil or Youth Style in German. It was characterized by its use of a long, sinuous organic line and was employed most often in architecture, interior design, jewelry and glass design, posters, and illustration. It is often taking the form of flower stalks and buds, vine tendrils, and sequins, and other delicate and twisting natural objects. The line may be elegant and graceful, or filled with a powerfully rhythmic and whip-like force. For example, here are the dragonfly corsage ornament made of gold by René Lalique in the Gulbenkian Museum, Lisbon, the staircase in the Hotel Tazel, designed by Vector Horta, and the illustration of Aubrey Beardsley for an 1893 edition of Sir Thomas Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur. So as you can see in this artwork, there was these flower stalks and lines with whip-like styles. But then again, what makes Art Nouveau different from the previous art movement? The aim of this art style was to modernize design. It sought to escape the dull, ordinary, eclectic styles that had previously been in fashion, like in Greek, medieval, and Baroque period of styles. This new movement was determined to eliminate the traditional hierarchy of the existing arts. So in the year 1890 to 1910, the art workers successfully created the new style of art that they called Art Nouveau. It set a trend as the first style that stopped looking backwards in history for ideas. A lot of its inspiration came from what it saw in the natural world. In a very short period of time, this art began to spread across many European cities. Next up is the movement's origin. The term Art Nouveau first appeared in the Belgian art journal L'Art Moderne in 1884 to describe the work of Levy, a society of 20 progressive artists that included James and Zorn. This group exhibited together in Belgium, being brought together by common interest in symbolist painting. However, if we were to name one person who made Art Nouveau big in Europe, it would be Siegfried Bing. He opened the gallery named Maison l'Art Nouveau in Paris. Bing's activities were important, perhaps crucial to the Japanese influence on Art Nouveau. Above all, Japanese art was inspired by nature. Other characteristic of Japanese art, like asymmetry, influenced all the above more European painters and architects. So, branching out from the Japanese ceramics and ukiyo-e prints for which he had become known, Bing promoted this new art in the gallery, selling a selection of furniture, fabrics, wallpaper, and objects d'art. Another roots also of Art Nouveau can be traced back to the arts and crafts movement in England. The English writer, designer, architect, and socialist William Morris was its defining figure. Morris' ideals of artisanal craftsmanship and his use of stylized, floral, and organic forms resonated with many Art Nouveau artists. It was held in the Art Nouveau period that aesthetic values should be combined with high standards of craftsmanship, and that works of art should be both beautiful and functional. Another considered leader of Art Nouveau movement is Aubrey Beardsley. His career was notable because of its impressive impact on illustration art. He made a name for himself as one of the most talked about artists of his time. His illustration, Salome, is considered as one of the most controversial of the Art Nouveau movement. Gustav Klimt was recognized for his decorative paintings of historical scenes and figures. The Kiss is one of the most instantly recognizable examples of his work and one of the few paintings of his that features a man. Victor Horta was one of the founders of Art Nouveau and known for expanding the movement from visual and decorative art into architecture. Horta's work was marked by his understanding of industrial advances with both iron and glass. The Hotel Tassel or Tassel House was considered as the first Art Nouveau building and one of Horta's most notable works. And Antoni Gaudí was an innovative architect who worked predominantly in Barcelona, where his Art Nouveau style filled the city. His work was inspired by nature and Catholic faith. His famous work was La Sagrada Familia, has been under construction since 1882 and is still being worked on to this day. Next is the flourish of Art Nouveau. Right before art lovers would begin riding in motor cars, watching moving pictures, and bracing for the First World War, they would flip through bright magazines of Art Nouveau styles. This cultural movement included decorative and applied arts, architecture, and painting during the years 1890 to 1910. Before Art Nouveau was presented, arts were based from history to create an ideas and inspiration for an artwork. However, unlike the traditional hierarchy of existing art, Art Nouveau presented a modernized design and a new set of style that really captured the humanity. That is why Art Nouveau was called as a new style of art. Art Nouveau was more than a mere style. It was a way of thinking about modern society and new production methods. It was an attempt to redefine the meaning and nature of the work of art. What sets Art Nouveau apart from the neoclassicist forms of art is the attempt by its artists to create a truly new form of art that did not mimic the past. The movement also sought to create an international style. When tourists visit Paris in the 21st century, it is easy to look around and see the lasting impact of Art Nouveau designs, including prints, pictures, signs, and wallpaper in public places and the windows of cafes and bazaars. In European hotels preserved from this time period, architecture and interior design examples survive today, much like the boutique hotel of Miami South Beach preserved the Art Deco style of buildings and interior design. This style exploded in Western Europe, where the wealthy and fashionable surrounded themselves with lush, naturalistic, one-of-a-kind objects and spaces crafted by the era's optimistic artists. And here are the finest Art Nouveau architectures. First is the Maxims, a dinner hotspot and historic landmark. Galeries Lafayette, a palatial flagship department store, and Grand Palais. Its interior ribs and tendrils bear the unmistakable whiplash of Art Nouveau lines. I have listed here a few artworks and architecture of Art Nouveau. So first is the National Concert Hall in Vilnius, Old Town in 1902, and the Art Nouveau urban villa of Anton Filipovich in Vilnius in 1903. Next is Discover Design by Arthur McMurdo. McMurdo's woodcut is an example of the influence of English design, particularly the arts and craft movement on Art Nouveau. The woodcut as a genre points to the handcrafted, unique quality of the artwork and the simplicity of McMurdo's use of positive and negative space both contribute to this association. The emphasis on the floral and vegetal imagery adorning the cover, which refuses any real consonance with the professed subject matter of the book, also highlights its purposefully decorative quality. And the La Goulou at the Moulin Rouge takes the flourish and messiness of a French cancan dancer's dress and breaks it down to a few simple, rhythmic lines, thereby suggesting the sense of movement and space. The flattening of forms to mere outlines with the flat-in feel of color recalls Art Nouveau's depth to Japanese prints, as well as the lighting in such nightclubs, and naturally would render the surface details of figures and other objects indistinct. The peacock skirt made by Aubrey Birdsley is an illustration based on the biblical narrative centered on Salome's order to behead and served on a platter the head of John the Baptist. And the education artwork by Tiffany is a 30-foot wide stained glass window. It was installed at the Yale University's new library that was built in memory of Mary Harwell Lusk, a daughter of the university's patron Simon Baldwin Chittenden. Back again with the Sagrada Familia, it is the finest creation of the renowned Catalan architect Antoni Gaudí. The architect devoted over 4 decades to the church, but at the time of his death in 1926, the spectacular building remained incomplete. But despite the fact that it is not finished, the Sagrada Familia is an UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1984 and Barcelona's prime tourist attraction for decades. While the right side artwork, Gismonda by Alphonse Mocha, reveals Mocha's distinct style, which had a major influence on Art Nouveau movement. Back again to the artworks of Gustav Klimt and Aubrey Birdsley. First is The Kiss by Gustav Klimt. The only features are virtually the faces and hands of two lovers who are kissing on the edge of the cliff, while The Dancer's Reward, it depicts Salome with the head of John the Baptist and justifies Birdsley's reputation as one of the most controversial artists of the Art Nouveau movement. After 1910, Art Nouveau appeared old-fashioned and limited and was generally abandoned as a distinct decorative style. In the 1960s, however, the style was rehabilitated, in part by major exhibition organized at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, as well as by the large-scale retrospective on Birdsley held at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London in 1966. The exhibition elevated the status of the movement, which had often been viewed by critics as a passing trend, to the level of other major modern art movements of the late 19th century. currents of the movement were then revitalized in pop art and op art. In the popular domain, the flowery organic lines of Art Nouveau were revived as the new style in fashion and in the typography used on rock and pop albums, covers, and in commercial advertising.